A Hairy Problem by Blue Bastard. Chapter 11. Cutie Crusaders Werewolf Hunters! Yay! Once Applejack was finally able to plop down onto the living room couch, she let it loose a sigh of relief she didn't know she had been waiting to come out. Between having to explain why she was wearing high-class perfume to not only her closest friends, but then practically half the town and then her own family, along with why the bananas were slightly beaten up, she had no plans to leave the farm anytime soon. At this point, she was sure that this whole dark hormones thing was tied into the cramps she started feeling again. So, until she could go into town without having her rear quarters drive her crazy, and not have dogs wanting to make her their mare friend, the farm was the only safe place for her. The perfume applications would also have to be done for at least another week, as recommended by Sandalwood, who had just outright given her a bottle of Shadtail No. 50 in order to be sure the whole dog-chasing thing never happened again. But then she let out a groan as the realization of the scope of her problems made it clear how much trouble she was in. No doubt she'd still be radiating hormones in her wolf body, and would probably end up attracting timberwolves and other things he did not want to get to know intimately. That posed a problem, as she was going to need a good night run within the week. But, with her special spot still being disagreeable, she couldn't risk going back into Everfree. I wonder if I could just get away with running around the farm, she pondered. Sure, she knew the lay of the land that the farm covered like the back of her hoof, and it wouldn't be as exciting as running through the unpredictable Everfree, but it was better than nothing. She just had to take care not to disturb the other residents of the farm. If they got alarmed and reported there was a wild predator, which they probably think it was a timberwolf, it could be bad for her. Her mind made up, she got back onto her hose and went off to do some more work around the farm, of which there was never a shortage of. The bell on top of the schoolhouse clanged back and forth, as if to tell the world school was done for the day, and to prepare for the army of fillies and colts to return home where they would create much trouble. The young ponies all began to disperse from the school, separating into various groups of friends and siblings as they went their separate ways for the day. Naturally, this meant the CMC came together to plan their next misadventure in their eternal quest for their bum marks. Hey, Avalon! I think we might be able to fix up that car we built and try our car racing K-Marks, eagerly asked Scootaloo, who seemed to be like the speed of the car a bit too much.
Oh, rather not. After looking at it when Applejack and Big Mike weren't around, the front axle's broken, and there's no way we could secretly fix that. Sorry, Scoot, but I think our car driving days is over.
Young Pegasus nickered in annoyance, once again regulated back to her scooter for wheeled speed. Sleebell, on the other hand, proposed a different idea.
What if we tried being aromatherapist? Applejack and Rarity seem to have become good friends with that new pony who was at the spa. Plus, she did suggest we try making the car, so maybe we'll try somebody to help us again.
Aroma what is? Inquired a confused Scootaloo.
Aromatherapist!
Squeaked Scooty Bell.
From what Rarity told me, there are ponies who use all kinds of things to generate smells and stuff to help relax ponies. Apparently, it's really popular at the spa, and I'm sure she would appreciate some help.
Ugh, that does not sound awesome at all, but I guess I'll go along. Not like I have anything better to do. With two Crusaders in agreement, and one reluctantly participating, it was decided that they were going to get their cutie marks in aromatherapy. Sandalwood was in good spirits. After the whole debacle involving Applejack revealing she was a werewolf, the day had gotten much better for Ponyville's newest resident. As it turned out, Chocolate Chip already had a place of his own, and Bonbon was in the process of moving out. She was pleased to hear Sandalwood would be taking her place in the flat, as she secretly doubted Lyra would find any pony willing to deal with the looking human-obsessed pony to the point of living with her. While Bonbon was back at the flat and taking care of the last of her things, Sandalwood was off to the hotel, where she would get her own things and check out before moving to her nearest wood. Hey, Sandalwood! Turning her head to see who was calling her, she paled slightly as the voice was one of the three fillies running toward her. The same three who had expressed interest in the car project she and Lyra had built, then later built their own and crashed it into the forest. While the threat of Applejack thralling her into a wall was mostly gone, Sandalwood didn't really want anything to do with what mishaps this trio was going to get into next.
Hello, girls. Can I help you with something? We want to try to get our cutie marks in aromatherapy, and we were wondering if you could teach us how to be aromatherapists,
cried Sleebell. Sandalwood who had been trotting at the light pace, came to a dead halt upon hearing the CMC's plans of becoming aromatherapists. Looking at them incredulously, she had to wonder what gave them the idea they could become the same thing she was. This is a joke, right? Please tell me it's a joke. The three fillies, one of each type of pony, shook their heads in unison. They're actually serious about this, thought Sandalwood. I know Rarity told me her little sister and friends could do some silly things at trying to find their talents, but really? Aromatherapy? You three seriously want to learn how to be aromatherapists like me? Three nodding heads, although the Pegasus, whose name Sandalwood didn't know, seemed considerably less enthusiastic than the other two fillies. Much to the CMC's disappointment, Sandalwood shook her head. Sorry, girls, but being an aromatherapist isn't something you just try and do. I've always been interested in working with perfumes and scents and stuff. So I was happy when I got my cutie mark and discovered performing aromatherapy was my special talent. It's actually very complicated to make the right mixtures and applications if you don't know what you're doing, and isn't something most ponies can learn. Somehow seeing a ray of hope when there really was none, Applebloom tried to reason with Sandalwood.
But what if we're not most ponies and we can be aromatherapists like you?
Sandalwood shook her head again. Even if you three are, which I seriously doubt, I wouldn't make a good teacher. Most of what I know has either been instinctual with my talents or learned through years of trial and error. I once made my mother, barring sarcasm, smell like rotten eggs for a week when I gave her some perfume I made that was supposed to have been the scent vanilla. I eventually got the mix right, but it took weeks of experimentation and hard work. From what I can tell, you three think this being trying to aromatherapist will get you your marks, but that's not how it works. You just need to be patient. Your marks will come in time when you realize you've all been good at your life, but never noticed before.
But that's what every pony says!
Cried the trio in unison. With good reason, I'll bet, Sandalwood responded, unmoved by the CMC's desperation to rush things that could not be rushed. I also have lots of rare and expensive things, not the kind of materials beginners want to start out with. Let me, order some basic materials and you three can come back and layer and try, okay? Now I apologize, but I really need to get my things and check out of my hotel before the clerk charges me for staying another night when I'm not. And with that, Sandalwood bid the CMC's goodbye and trotted off rather quickly in the direction of the hotel. Well, so much for that idea, Scootaloo moaned, secretly glad she never risked learning her special talent was making other ponies smell better. What are we going to do now? A thought came to Sleepybell's mind.
I don't know. Maybe we could try something no pony within 1,000 years has tried, like Crazy the Sun. Ponies apparently could do that before the princesses came to it before them, and according to the High Swimming East legends.
Scootaloo was not amused. Yeah, we're gonna raise the sun. Do I look like the daughter of Princess Celestia to you? Am I secretly hiding my true identity as Princess Scootaloo by magically rendering a horn on my head invisible and pretending I can't fly? People, there's a few fics like that.
Yes.
Radi's little sister replied, her face straight as a plank of lumber. Scootaloo just stared at Sleepybell, rolling her eyes when the tiny unicorn couldn't keep out the straight face and began giggling. Applebloom once again acted as leader in trying to get the Crusaders back on track.
Come on, girls. We'll need to come up with some new ideas for getting cue marks. I don't know about you two, but I don't want to be a bank flank for all my life. We need some kind of brainstorming session so we can have a whole list of possible tales we could try. What about a sleepover?
Proposed Sleepybell. Ever a fan of sleepovers.
It's so weekend, so we don't have to worry about school and stay up night and come up with new ideas.
Yeah! Agreed the flightless Pegasus. Mom and Dad probably won't mind having their nights to themselves instead of looking after me. They're always so busy around this time of year. Scootaloo's parents, Flower Shower and Slipstream, were evaluators for the weather teams all over Equestria, origin number 27. As a result of their always being away at their jobs, they tried to spend most of their free time with their single daughter, and were usually not around. While there were a few adults who knew them and watched Scootaloo when they weren't around, they were so rarely seen around town that rumors had started that Scootaloo was a runaway, or an abandoned orphan. Or, if you people have been following my show for the past few months, it's actually a genetic research experiment trying to become an alicorn.
That sounds like a great idea. I'll go ask Granny if it's all right.
Applejack tried to keep grumbling to herself. Tonight's running plans were complicated now not only by trying not to wake the rest of the farm up, But now she had to contend with her sister and friends sleeping over at their clubhouse in a secluded part of the farm. A place she wanted to go because it was the only place on the farm with trees located close enough to best simulate the challenges of the Everfree. Maybe she still could, but unless the Crusaders eventually conked out before she reached there at night, she had to scratch plans to visit that area of the farm until another night. She was certain the normal fields of apple trees would be sufficient in that situation. However, another issue Applejack found herself having with the Crusaders on the farm was invoking some major deja vu feelings she didn't really like. For one reason or another, Scoo suddenly looked really, really delicious to her, as if she was a giant walking chicken. Scoo-boo, what's the matter with you? Who was both young and subtle. A walking chicken dinner ripe for the no. Applejack rebuked herself as he went off to off-road and harvest some apples. See, it's not on the menu. Period. I'm going to control this werewolf thing. Not like I control me. Meanwhile, at the CMC clubhouse, the three Phillies were getting ready for their sleepover. Naturally, as is the case with all sleepovers, they had no actual plans to fall asleep. After all, this was supposed to be their big planning night, where they could come up with an inexhaustible list of things to try so they could gain their cutie marks.
Maybe we'll get our cutie marks in having sleepovers.
Sweet, that was our special talent that we wouldn't gotten our marks back when we were having a sleepover at Fluttershy's. School retorted.
Oh, right.
Apple Bloom then poked her head out the upper floor observatory. Hey, girls, come up here and look through the telescope. The sunset is really something to see. A mad scramble between the Pegasus and the Unicorn shortly followed as they ascended their clubhouse fortress to gaze through the telescope. Celestia's sunset was truly a sight to see, as the duty of maintaining the sky fell to Luna once more. Once the night had settled in, and Big Mac had came by to check in on the Crusaders before the rest of the apples went to bed, the trio went to bed before checking on to see all lights in the house go out. Upon that moment, the three ponies got back up and began their true mission of planning their future endeavors. But their next attempt at cutie marks was something they would never see coming. She had to. Feeling the sensation of her body turning into a more feral form, Applejack could not resist the urges of the night. It was hard enough winning the battle for her mind to not direct her to go to the forest, because he really didn't want to know the effect she had on the wildlife in there at the moment. Making her usual leap from the bedroom window to the ground, she quickly darted off to take cover. Couldn't risk any pony seeing her as she began formulating her plans for the night. She started off easily enough, bobbing and weaving through the apple trees. Then, maybe a few laps around the practice rodeo track. Finally, if she was lucky, Apple Bloom and her friends would have fallen asleep and she could run through that area for the greatest thrills. Once done, she could finally go back to her room and shift back, and no pony would be the wiser. Sure, there was that risk of waking up the other residents of the farm, but that risk was part of the thrill. The adrenaline high that Applejack's werewolf side needed to crave almost as much as meat. Her plan set, she quickly dashed off to begin her substitute running course, starting with the groves of apple trees. It wasn't anything too challenging, but trying to imagine more random obstacles in her way made things a lot better. But she hadn't predicted on her ability to go flat out. Without obstacles in the trees neatly spaced out from one another, she could open her throttle and rush as fast as she could with the source of her family income renting on both sides. Then she made a critical mistake. Overcome by the adrenaline, she couldn't stop herself from letting out an excited howl. Without the thick, dense cover of the Everfree, she sounded very much like a timber wolf who had trespassed onto Sweet Apple Acres. Looking for an easy meal. She had not only woke up all the other animals on the farm, but also Big Mac and Granny. The run hadn't even really begun, and she was already in hot water. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it! The werewolf cursed as he frantically looked around for a place to hide. Conveniently, there was a thick patch she could see at the far end of the farm, where she could lay low until enough time had passed she could turn back into her pony form and pretend not to be trying to track down whatever it is that had spooked every pony. She had just got into her hiding spot when all of a sudden bright lights came on nearby. To Applejack's horror, she saw it was coming from the CMC treehouse, and even though it was a stupid idea any sane pony, those there were going to come out to try and find the culprit for causing all the ruckus if their previous actions fueled by curiosity were any indication. Fortunately, despite being out of the most wooded part of the farm, The trees were still too neatly separated to completely conceal Applejack. Her orange coat was a dead giveaway. She needed to figure out how she was going to get out of there, while still explaining why she was out on the farm at night. And fast! Contrary to their own expectations, the Crusaders had ended up all falling asleep rather quickly. They didn't get much set-eye, however, as the sound of a close-by howl, followed by a large racket of noise coming from all over the farm, made them stir.
What in the world could that be?
Apple Bloom murmured groggily. Sleepy yawned.
Uh, I don't know, but it seems to have gotten the cows and sheep all worried about something.
Hi, are. And it's... Half snored and half asleep, Scootaloo. She did not remain asleep for long, as she suddenly found herself in the middle of a three-way hug. The scientifically proven method that had been found to convince Scootaloo to do something she didn't want to do. Okay, I surrender! Just get off me!
Well, now that we're all awake,
Apple Bloom started, taking leadership of the charge of the group.
we probably should play what we as the Key Crusaders are going to do to earn our marks. I don't know,
Attended Sweetbell.
whatever caused the cows and sheep to make all that noise out there by still being around. I don't feel so safe in here anymore.
Suddenly, Scootaloo shot up into the air, hitting a hanging light bulb that instantly turned on for the collision. You mean to say the creature outside is dangerous? It could possibly get us all killed if we try to get it? The Earth and Unicorn fillies slowly nodded their head to the Pegasus. Not sure where she was going with this. Well, what if we tried to find it and catch it? We could get our key marks in dangerous animal capturing! Apple Bloom raised an eyebrow at that.
Scoot, that sounds like a highly dangerous and most likely will just end up dead or the next meal of that thing out there.
Yeah, I'll admit there's some risk, but it can't be too bad. Since back when you had the cutie pox, you tamed lions, remember?
Oh yeah, you're right.
And so, without any actual reasons for not agreeing with the plan to hunt down a potentially lethal monster that could eat them, the trio immediately got to work, assembling a makeshift animal control gear in the hopes of getting their dangerous animal capturing. Nothing could go wrong! Chapter 12. CMC WHY? Beams of light danced around the base of the tree that contained the Crusaders' headquarters. With the whole farm on alert for reasons unknown to the fillies, the trio had decided that the best course of action would be to leave the safety of the treehouse. Armed with nothing but flashlights and capes, the trio bravely, and more realistically, stupidly, charged forth into the night to track down the monster outside their door. In most circumstances, the door would have either eaten or killed them with little trouble. Although the three didn't know it, they were truly in no danger, as the monster in reality was Applejack. However, that just meant the werewolf was the one in danger, of her secret being revealed. By that point, Applejack had reasons she could get away with her current situation by saying she had been woken up by the howls and come over to check on the fillies. Did this left the problem of having her to find a place where she could go back into her pony form without the three seeing her. Considering her current hiding spot, with a lucky flashlight would illuminate like a heart-warming tree, her options looked bleak. Then, a stroke of luck came in when Sweetbell ended up tripping on the top step outside the treehouse. She toppled into the two fillies in front of her, sending them crashing into the ground, the flashlight spiraling in different directions. Seizing the moment, Applejack immediately rushed out of her hiding spot. Instead, took up residence in a thicker brush that persisted only she could see the Crusaders. But they couldn't see her unless they looked closely. Of course, her hunters, being easily distracted foals, the odds were in her favor.
Hi, I heard something from over there,
exclaimed Apple Bloom, who recovered her flashlight and directed its beam towards Applejack's previous hiding spot.
Are you guys sure about this? I mean, what if this thing is really dangerous? Like, seriously, her head's dangerous?
Whimpered a scared Sweetbell. Scootaloo was having none of it. Oh, come on! You're not a scared chicken, are you?
And not you, if that's what you're asking.
Hey! The two were about to get into a light scuffle, had Apple Bloom not intervened.
Girls, come on. You can push each other around later. Right now, we got some monster kites. Who knows? It might even be one of those sparkling vampires Twist was talking about another day.
Apple Bloom. She was talking about that stupid romance novel series most of the girls at school are going gaga over. Every pony in school knows they're not real.
But, what is it not?
Stammered Sweetbell. 5 seconds later, the CMC had huddled up into a pile and were shining their flashlights all over the place and trying to see if anything sparkled. Applejack counted this as her second stroke of good luck. as, somehow, amid the three flying beams of light, there was a clear path where she could remain unseen. She bolted toward the tree.
Fire!
Exclaimed one of the fillies. Applejack wasn't so sure who, but the escalation caused her a moment of panic. Unfortunately, the CMC had just noticed from the movement of the spot their prey had left, and moving toward it, completely oblivious to the scary wolf pony passing them not 5 feet away and cloaked in the night. Those three are so easily distracted. They make excellent. No, 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 no! Thought Applejack, scrubbing away thoughts of the CMC as a midnight snack, as she snuck her way into the treehouse. While normally she would have given herself away by the combination of hard hooves clattering on the wooden base of the structure, her werewolf-granted jumping ability enabled her to bypass having to walk the stairs, and her padded paws were deathly silent. Thus, she was able to get into the place undetected. Once inside, she immediately shifted back into pony form before letting a sigh of relief. Her palms done. Thankfully, now the aim is to get those blurry by the blade. Walking outside to the railing, the restored mare saw her sister and friends now trying to examine the second hiding spot like the crime scene of a murder. Unable to hold back a snicker due to knowing the truth, she called out, "Apple Bloom! Sweetie Belle! Scandaloo! Are you all right?" The three fillies snapped up their voice, with Apple Bloom exclaiming,
Applejack, what are y'all doing out there?
leaving down for the balcony. Applejack replied, "Something's got the whole farm in an uproar, so I rose down here to make sure y'all were all right."
Yeah, we're fine. We're just looking for whatever is causing all the ruckus over there.
Applejack put on her best annoyed face to express her feelings about the CMC putting themselves into a dangerous situation. "And what exactly were you three going to do if this mysterious rebel-rouser was actually around here? What if it were a timber wolf or something? Y'all could have been hurt, or worse, and I don't think I need to explain my personal experiences with that kind of thing." Apple Bloom was at a loss for words. Her sister was correct in that hunting down something that potentially lethal was not a good idea in hindsight. All she could do about it was shoot a nasty glance at Scootaloo. The Pegasus didn't notice, still looking around at everything with her head moving about like a pigeon, trying to see if the creature was around, not knowing if it was really stood before her. It was at this time Big Mac came rushing in. "Girls, are you all right? I can't find Applejack and his missing sister just raised an eyebrow. "What? Did y'all think I was going to let these three silly fillies be left alone all for this far from the house? First thing I did when I woke up was leap out my window to check up on 'em. I'm assuming you and Granny went to take care of the others." But at this point, the ruckus coming from the other side of the farm had quieted down significantly. "Oh, yup," Big Mac confirmed with hesitation. Somehow, Applejack had managed to answer the big question in his head about why apparently she had left her room through the bedroom window. While he knew she could survive the fall, as their ponies were built tough like that, she had been doing some weird things at night. Applejack had insisted it was her own business, and she didn't want to talk about it yet. So, the fact that this night had nothing to do with her situation was a relief.
"I think I got ourselves a problem,"
Granny Smith informed her two oldest grandfoals. The Crusaders, after having been taken back into the main house, had been put to bed in Apple Bloom's room for safety. In the meantime, Granny, Big Mac, and AJ were sitting at the kitchen table, trying to appraise the situation. "From the sound I heard, I don't wake 'em up. It sounded like some kind of wolf howl," Applejack said. "Timber wolves, maybe?" suggested Big Mac, trying not to show his concerns over whether or not a wolf of some kind was sitting right next to him. Somehow, neither Applejack nor Granny were noticing his small twists of apprehension. Granny shook her head.
"That can't be. Those ruffians don't howl long enough to even stir Sam Apple's leaves at the start of the farm hooves and livestock."
Big Mac wasn't so sure. "You sure, Granny?" Mubel said,
"I'm over 100 years old. I think I know how loud those stinking timber wolves can howl after all these years."
Secretly desperate and trying to divert suspicion away from herself, Applejack decided to try and force a discussion to keep the topic on Timberwolves. "Granny, Blake might could be right. What if a Timberwolf let out a howl while I was on the farm?" Granny was incredulous.
"Don't be silly, Applejack. Timber wolves never come out of the everfree forest."
"But what if they are now? If the availability of food in the forest can't meet the demand of the population, maybe they're venturing out of the forest simply to survive." Granny tapped her chin.
"You got a point there, Applejack. I hadn't thought of that.
course, if we do now have Timberwolves trying to raid the farm, we'll need to figure out a way to get them back to that blasted forest and keep the place safe for everybody. Applejack nodded, answering with, I'll talk to Fluttershy tomorrow and see if she can do anything to help. Fleur suddenly turned to face the stairs and shouted, don't you for think I don't know y'all are up at the top of those stairs! At the sound of what could only be hushed voices and 12 hooked legs hitting the floor came from the top of the stairs, as the compromised fillies rushed back to their beds and pretended they didn't hear the whole conversation. Applejack, in response, shook her head. I'll swear, if there's one thing those three won't try for their cutie marks, it's sleeping. For now, she decided not to chew them out. They were just young ponies who were still curious about the world. So what if they knew about this problem of Timberwolf intrusions? It's not like they were actually going to do anything about it, right?
Our Will does not believe he understands you correctly.
The Minotaur, out shopping at the market for provisions, which he would need on his werewolf hunting quest, did not know what to make of the three tiny ponies who approached him. The yellow one with the bow spoke as a reply.
Mr. Whale, word around town is that you're hunting timberwolves. Is that right?
Yes. Why do you...
Well, you see, me and my friends here want to catch this one timberwolf who apparently is trying to raid 3.5 acres so we could get our cutie marks in timberwolf catching. You know, the problem is we don't know how. So, we came to you to see if you know if you could teach us.
Yep, I will have heard them the first time. They actually wanted him to teach them how to catch savage timberwolves. On the one hand, this probably wasn't going to be the greatest plan ever devised. Since these three were just minors, it didn't have anything that would give them an advantage against wolves made of nothing but sticks and leaves. On the other, after the rather dismal performance he and his assistants had put in last time they had gone timberwolf hunting, they did need to practice. So knowing where there would be at least one in advance would prove far easier starting block for working out trying to catch a rear werewolf. Plus, considering how much more savage werewolves were rumored to be compared to timberwolves, Irewolf Will needed to know he was up to the task.
Maybe I could do just the whole teaching thing like my service seminars,
thought Iron Will.
Those generally tend to be very effective at teaching ponies. All right, Iron Will has decided that he will help you.
He was cut off by the three simultaneously voices crying out,
Cutie markers say us wolf hunters!
However,
I declared Iron Will, asserting his superiority.
Iron Will needs to discuss this with your parents and or guardians first.
Needless to say, the Crusaders were less than thrilled about the sudden need for their parents and their guardians to know anything about their plans being so reckless and dangerous. Meanwhile, over at Fluttershy's couch, Applejack was getting Fluttershy's opinion on the matter.
The timberwolves, you say? Oh, I don't know why they'd be resorting to raiding your farm for food. The Everfree Forest is extremely large. It shouldn't be having problems supporting the timberwolf population unless their numbers have grown excessively large. Even then, all that would do is create conflict between the different packs of timberwolves over food supply. They never go beyond the edge of the forest.
Are you sure there ain't another reason for trying to steal from my farm?
Well, there is one other possibility. Our Will has allegedly been in the forest trying to catch timberwolves.
Now, why in the hay is he trying to catch timberwolves? Asked the confused Applejack. There's nothing you could get for killing them in a way that stops them from reforming their bodies. The wood ain't even good for burning.
I asked him the same question, and he told me this is all prep work for his real quest to hunt werewolves.
Applejack immediately reeled back for reasons only obvious to her. Werewolves? He's hunting werewolves? Fluttershy, thinking her friend was as scared of the notion werewolves existed, continued.
I know. Just the idea those legends could be even true scared me as well. But Iron Will says he's only doing it to try and win the hand of the Minotaur princess in his home country based on some ancient decree. I don't really understand it myself, but from what he told me, he ended up angering an entire pack of them a few nights ago.
But Applejack was no longer concerned about her timberwolf problem. In light of this new one exclusive to her, you're sure he's going after werewolves? But those don't exist! I would have thought somebody would have known that their goal was impossible, and it don't get more impossible than hunting something that don't exist, right? Fluttershy sat on her haunches so she could struggle with her front legs.
I don't know what to say, Applejack. He's not hurting any pony. You can't really do much to permanently hurt timberwolves without setting them on fire. So as long as it stays true, I don't see much of a problem with it. But what about your Timberwolf raiding issue on the farm? What do you plan to do about that?
All right, my Timberwolf problem. Well, I was hoping you might stay on the farm tonight, see those ruffians come back. In case they do, maybe you could use your stare on to get them back in line or something.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I guess I could give it a shot. It certainly would be better than harming them at any rate. I'll be over a little later once I pack my things, so I can stay over on the farm.
Great! I'll get the best guest bedroom set up for you. Applejack bid farewell to Fluttershy before returning back to the farm. News that Iron Will, who AJ was sure was half cow and half pectoral muscle, had come to Ponyville of all hastes to hunt werewolves was a massive inconvenience to her, since, as a werewolf, she was still trying to complete control over her new body's urges. As long as he doesn't know actually anything about tracking werewolves, I should be fine, thought Applejack, although it would be best if she had avoided him entirely.
Explain to me how this is going to work exactly,
asked Granny Smith. At the time of start of no pony communicating any of their plans, the Apples found themselves playing host to not only the entire CMC again, but both Fluttershy and Iron Will. Applejack was, naturally, immediately scared out of her wits when the one creature who had legitimately wanted to kill her was sitting in the living room and eating some apple pie. That image is awesome. I mean, who here right now is just seeing an image of Iron Will holding up a fork and dramatically eating a pie, a piece of apple pie, with a big grin on his face? Doing her best to hide how uncomfortable she was with his presence, her nervous smile and rough speech pattern did nothing to hide those feelings. She was lucky every pony else misinterpreted her reaction and believed she was just scared of the Minotaur's massively built body. So big, in fact, he had to sleep in the barn when there was no way he was getting up the stairs. He barely fit in the ground floor rooms as it was. What made things worse, however, was the reason he was even there. Somehow, the Crusaders had convinced him and his two co-assistants to help deal with the Timberwolf issue, under the guise of them teaching the fillies on how to deal with the problem themselves. How Granny had been convinced to even allow this, despite both arguments from Big Mac and Applejack, remained a mystery. When Fluttershy had finally gotten to the Apple homestead, dealing with her needs was a cakewalk compared to trying to fit Iron Will at the dinner table, where Granny insisted on serving dinner to all parties staying the night. Fluttershy spoke up.
Well, Iron Will and I agreed to try and deal with your Timberwolf problem by combining our specialities. If they show it tonight, I'll try to peacefully convince them to leave the farm alone. Then, if that fails, Iron Will can...
Iron Will shall show them that they think this farm is a pushover. All they'll get is the once-over,
shouted Iron Will, once again finding himself trying to insert seminar quotes into conversations. Somehow, they didn't really work outside the context of said seminars.
Yes. Thank you, Iron Will,
continued Fluttershy, recovering from being startled and hitting both Big Mac and Applejack in the face with her flared wings.
Anyway, you'll be doing that, and the CMC can watch if they want. They won't be in any trouble.
That was when Sleepbell interjected with her own contribution, holding up a book titled How to Deal with a Werewolf Problem by an author named Blue Velvet.
We can help them reading books like this!
As volunteered by one Twilight Sparkle.
Sleepbell, where did you get that book? I found it with Iron Will's stuff,
answered the tiny unicorn, before opening it up and reading the first few lines.
Do you think your lover becomes a monster at night? Does his fifth leg become rock hard during the full moon? This guide will instruct you how to turn that savage creature into your greatest toy and give you the nights of unparalleled passion-filled nights of love-making.
Iron Will, who hadn't been paying much attention, immediately reacted when he realized just which one of his books Sleepbell was reading. Managing to move just in time to snatch the book away before every pony else figured out what that book really was.
Iron Will would like to remind everybody that it is very rude to go through the things belonging to others, especially when those things contain items that are very unfit for young minds.
Applejack immediately grew suspicious at Iron Will's reasoning for snatching the book. Unfit for failures to say? What's in that there book exactly? Let me say it. I'm a grown man. Deciding to let the book speak for itself, Iron Will handed it over to Applejack, who grabbed it and immediately started reading. 5 seconds later, her face managed to both go pale and break out into a bright red blush as he realized that Iron Will had prevented the CMC from reading. She closed the book and handed it back over to the Minotaur, stammering out, why do you even have a book like it? After placing the book under himself, such that the CMC couldn't access to it, Iron Will gave out a half-hearted response, while not directly looking to any pony else in the eye, blushing a fair shade of crimson in his own right.
Iron Will judged that book to be about werewolf hunting from its cover. Combined with the extremely low price that the vendor was putting on it, Iron Will figured it was worth spending a few bits to see if this book was very good. Iron Will has since regretted that action and has been trying to find a way to dispose of this book so it can't offend anyone of sane mind with its risque suggestions for its true intended audience.
I would like to read that book. I need a little bit of help in that category. Trixie, put down the beam! At that point, Big Mac, Fluttershy, and Granny also figured out what Iron Will had unintentionally bought, and the CMC almost read about, visibly glancing as a result. The CMC were still confused as to what every pony else was trying to keep from them, only knowing that it may or may not have been adult-only material, and Applejack was desperately trying not to break her down into hysterics at the situation she was in. First, I can't go running into the woods because of some hormonal thing involving my time of the month. Then I get this Timberwolf raid nonsense started because I can't keep my damn mouth shut when I'm a wolf. And now my sister almost found out about the birds of the beast in the most horrifying, detailed way imaginable. Applejack lamented silently. Can this get any worse for me? Of course, as always with the accidental invocation of Murphy's Law, it would soon become a night Applejack would never forget, for all the wrong reasons.